I run the only radio shop left in Anwell Flats, which tells you most of what you need to know about Anwell Flats. Population falling every census, one gas station, one diner, and my shop, wedged between a shuttered feed store and a laundromat that only half the machines still work in. I fix what people bring me: televisions, ham sets, the occasional jukebox somebody's grandfather left behind, and I don't ask questions I don't need to ask. 41 years old, hands permanently stained with solder flux, and I learned a long time ago that most people who walk into a repair shop aren't looking to talk about why the thing broke. They just want it working again. Ren started coming around about 8 months before any of this happened. She rented the old Hutchins place at the edge of town, kept to herself, worked cash-only shifts at the diner 3 nights a week. Nobody in Anwell Flats knew much about her, and in a town that small, that alone should have told me something. She had a way of standing like she was listening to something under the ground. Amber eyes with a strange narrow fleck in them that caught the light wrong sometimes, like a mirror behind a mirror. I noticed. I never said anything. The first time she came into the shop, she was carrying an old field radio wrapped in a dish towel like it was something that might bleed if she dropped it. Heavy, dented, a housing I didn't recognize, not military surplus, not anything I'd cataloged in 20 years of buying salvage lots. She set it on my counter like she was setting down something borrowed from someone she was afraid of. "Can you get it working?" she said. Not really a question. I turned it over, popped the back panel, looked at the guts of it. Whatever it wasn't built by anybody on this continent. The wiring ran in patterns that didn't make sense until I stopped trying to make them make sense and just followed them. I told her it'd take some time. She nodded like she'd expected that answer and left without telling me her last name. She came back every week after that, sat in the chair by the window while I worked, never rushing me, never explaining. I got the thing partway functional inside a month, enough that it hummed, enough that a green light woke up somewhere behind the dial, and I could have called that finished. Most customers would have taken it home right there, happy with hum and light. She looked at it a long moment and said, "It's not enough yet." And I understood without being told that we weren't fixing a radio. We were finishing something. I never asked what. That was the whole of it, if you want the truth. I never asked why an item like that existed, or why it mattered so much that it worked completely and not almost, or why her eyes did that thing at the edges when she thought I wasn't looking, like she was homesick for a place she couldn't name out loud. I just kept opening the panel every Thursday afternoon and doing the next honest piece of the job. Some men would call that lack of curiosity. I call it manners. You don't pry open a person any more than you pry open a machine that isn't yours to understand. You just do the work they trust you with and let them keep the rest. 10 more months. I learned the strange wiring like a second language. I sourced a crystal from a scrapped satellite dish out past the Delgado Ranch that turned out to be exactly what the housing wanted, like the whole radio had been built around a piece I'd find 12 miles from my own shop. Small towns keep secrets that way sometimes. Pieces of things scattered close enough together that if you're patient, they find each other. The night it finally came alive, she was sitting in her usual chair, and I was closing up the panel for what I told her would be the last real adjustment. I threw the switch out of habit more than expectation. The green light didn't just wake up this time. It steadied into something with a rhythm to it, a slow pulse like a heartbeat finding its pace, and a tone came off the speaker that wasn't static. It was clean, deliberate, climbing through frequencies like it was climbing stairs it had been waiting 11 months to reach. Ren went rigid in the chair. Her hand came up to her mouth. I'd never seen her afraid before. I'd never seen her hope before either. And it turned out those two things wear almost the same face. "What did I just do?" I said. And I meant it as an honest question for the first time in a year of not asking questions. "You finished it," she said, and her voice cracked open on the word finished in a way that told me this had cost her more than 8 months of cash-only diner shifts to wait for. We didn't have long to sit with it. Anwell Flats is the kind of town where nothing happens, which means everyone notices immediately when something does. Sheriff Deputy Aldana was banging on my shop door inside 20 minutes, asking about the light in the sky out past the water tower, and by the time I got outside, half the town was standing in the street in their bathrobes looking up at something small and bright and getting bigger, descending slow and quiet like it had all the patience in the world and no interest in hurrying for anyone's comfort. It came down in the empty lot behind the feed store, no fire, no sound worth mentioning, just a shape settling into the dirt the way a bird settles onto a branch it's flown a long way to find. Ren walked toward it without looking back at the crowd behind her, without looking back at me. And for a moment I thought that was simply how these things ended. A woman walks toward the thing she's been waiting for, and the man who fixed her radio watches from the edge of a gathering crowd and goes back to closing up his shop. Then she stopped. turned around in the dirt lot with the whole town gone silent behind her, phones half raised and forgotten in people's hands, and looked at me the way she used to look at that radio before it worked, like something not quite finished yet. "My name is Reneth," she said, loud enough that Deputy Aldana heard it and went still. "Reneth of the Korean line. My house was taken 11 years ago. I've been waiting for a signal strong enough to reach anyone left who'd still answer it." Nobody in that lot moved. I didn't either. I wasn't sure what a man was supposed to do with information like that, standing in a feed store parking lot in his work apron with solder flux still under his fingernails. 8 months, she said, and her eyes were wet now. Finally, openly, but steady, not falling apart, just full. 8 months. You fixed a machine you didn't understand, for a woman who never told you why, and you never once asked me to explain myself before you'd help. Every person on my own world who mattered wanted proof of who I was before they'd risk anything for me. You just wanted the radio to work. I didn't have a speech ready. I'm not that kind of man. Seemed like it mattered to you, I said. That was reason enough. She crossed the last of the dirt lot and stood close enough that I could see the fleck in her eyes catching the light from the thing that had landed behind her. Not a mirror at all, I understood now. Just a piece of somewhere else she'd been carrying around Anwell Flats for 8 months, waiting on me to finish the last honest piece of a job I never fully understood. "Where I'm from," she said, "we don't crown people for what they were born with. We crown them for what they do when nobody's watching to reward it." She looked past me at my shop, dark windows, the little bell still hanging crooked over the door. "Come see it. Just to see. You don't have to stay unless you want to." I thought about the shop, the customers who'd come Monday with televisions and ham sets, the life I'd built out of small, honest fixes in a town nobody remembered to leave anymore. Then I thought about 10 months of Thursday afternoons and a woman who never once needed me to know who she was before I'd help her find her way home. "All right," I said. She smiled. Small. Real. The first unguarded thing I'd seen on her face in 8 months, and said the 2 words the whole street would talk about for years after. The 2 words that told me she wasn't just leaving, she was choosing who came with her. "Welcome home."